Alrighty, welcome back everyone to another edition of Harry Fling Wrestling. I am your host, Harry Fling. We are approximately 72 hours away from WrestleMania Saturday, and then we'll go into WrestleMania Sunday. WrestleMania 41 is live this weekend, and as Kenny Loggins once said, this is it. WrestleMania is here. Boy, is this going to be a good one. So most likely this will be probably the last rewriting WrestleMania for a while, because WrestleMania season's over come Sunday night when it's all said and done. Go Cody Rhodes. I hope he kicks Cena's ass this Sunday and prevents him from becoming a 17-time world champion. See if The Rock will get involved. Haven't seen him since the Elimination Chamber. Anyways, let's get to today's topic, shall we? We are rewriting WrestleMania 25. It was live Sunday, April the 5th of 2009 from the venue of Reliance Stadium in Houston, Texas. I think he had an attendance of 80,000, somewhere around there. I don't have the exact numbers on hand right now. It was one of the more mediocre WrestleManias. Now, it wasn't terrible. Some of the worst WrestleManias I've ever seen were 2, 9, 11... Actually 11 wasn't that bad. I wouldn't put that there. I actually like the last two matches, but that's pretty much it. What else was one really bad? 22 I didn't enjoy. I also didn't like 27. 32 was really bad. We've had some really bad ones, but this one here, WrestleMania 25, it could have been so much better, but it wasn't the worst. It was saved by one of the greatest matches of all time, which we'll talk about in the midst of this video here. So this was early 2009, and I just turned 20 years old, and I was in college. First time I saw Mania in college, I was living down in South Florida at the time, watching this with some friends, and we ordered the pay-per-view, and it was a fun night. Don't get me wrong, it's always fun to watch wrestling with other people, especially your friends, but, as a lifelong fan, I analyze it a little bit different than a casual fan might, because I think it could have been so much better. So let's get into it now. So one match what I would have made the main event ended up being Triple H and Randy Orton. We'll get to that match in just a little bit, but I wouldn't have put that one on last. That was mediocre at best. What I really would have had was the World Heavyweight Championship Fatal 4-Way Elimination Match. Similar to WrestleMania 2000, but different participants, of course, 9 years later. I would have had Edge walking into WrestleMania 25 as the World Heavyweight Champion. And he would have defended his title against Christian, Matt Hardy, and Jeff Hardy. Almost 10 years later, this is coming full circle, because the first time these four ever were in a match together on pay-per-view was October of 99 at No Mercy, the US version, live from Cleveland. And they had the Terry Runnels Invitational, where the Hardys won the managerial services of Terry Runnels. And then, of course, you had the Triangle Ladder match, WrestleMania 2000. WrestleMania 17, you had the TLC 2. SummerSlam 2000 was TLC 1. So these four are very used to each other in many different capacities, many different matches. They've all competed against one another. They've teamed up, too. So Jeff Hardy was especially a hot character here, because if you remember Armageddon 2008, he finally won the big one. You did it, kid, I remember saying something along those lines. I don't know if that was verbatim. This is like 17 years ago now. But yeah, I was so thrilled as a wrestling fan, and they kept putting it off. Jeff Hardy had a tumultuous 2008 because he was actually supposed to be in the Money in the Bank ladder match at WrestleMania 24, and then he had a 60-day suspension for a wellness policy violation. And to add insult to injury, his house burned down. So, go figure. Then I think something else happened. He might have had another suspension that year. He tried to win at Unforgiven in the Scramble. No Mercy against Triple H. Cyber Sunday again against Triple H. They did that god-awful stairwell incident, that stairwell storyline where he was attacked there or he passed out or something. It's not funny to make light of an issue like that, because many wrestlers, many people in general, if somebody that suffers substance abuse, they could very well pass out anywhere, let alone a stairwell, and people find them unconscious. It's not something you want to make a joke and a game out of. So that title opportunity was taken away, and finally he won at Armageddon. only to lose it a month later at Royal Rumble. So what ended up happening was Matt actually turned on Jeff out of jealousy and cost Jeff the WWE Championship, which was on SmackDown at the time. Jeff dropped it back to Edge at Royal Rumble in 2009. Now, as many of you internet marks out there know, Christian was supposed to make his grand return at the Rumble in 2009 and interfere in that match between Edge and Jeff Hardy. And I think he was supposed to help. So what I would have had happen, he would have been the one to cost Jeff his WWE Championship. I think what ended up happening and why they changed that is because WWE got wind of the rumors going around, the dirt sheets lighting up that, Christian's coming back, he's going to be at the Rumble. So they didn't want the end result to be too predictable because people were expecting that. So that's why they went with the alternate route of having Matt turn heel on Jeff. So I'd had Christian turn heel, and Edge and Christian could have been a heel duo once again, 8 years after they split up in the fall of 2001. Matt and Jeff could have both been faces, but I definitely wouldn't have gone the tag team match route because we've seen it so many times, TV and pay-per-view. So fatal four-way elimination match. I would have had Jeff come out on top, boil it down to Edge and Jeff because they're the more popular members of their two teams. And that's not me calling Matt and Christian Jannetty's of their team. They're no Marty Jannetty. They're better than Marty Jannetty. But Christian Matt Hardy considerably were the least popular members of their respective duos, but they were still successful in other avenues of wrestling. So I would have had Matt probably be the first one eliminated, then Christian, then it boils down to Edge and Jeff, then Jeff finally winning, then have the confetti celebration. Because they did an Armageddon, the WWE Championship win, it was a great moment, don't get me wrong. It was great, but it could have been so much better on a bigger stage like a WrestleMania if they'd waited just a little bit longer. But this would have been a great way too, because Jeff, having already been a world champion, could have had, another feather in his cap by having another world title under his belt. So that would have worked. And as for the Matt and Jeff feud, maybe do that the next year or something, or they could have feuded afterwards. There's eventually something would have to happen with Edge and Christian, but we're not going to go down that route because I want to talk about WrestleMania 25, the card that I envision, without getting into too much detail of what happens after. The night after and whatever. So we're going to move on now to the WWE Championship match, which I would have kept the same, but had the end result be different. Triple H defending against Randy Orton. Boy, oh boy, what a lackluster one-star match that was. That actually closed out Mania, which made it kind of a shit show at the end. I just wanted to fall asleep. And boy, let me tell you, they had a lot of great build-up to this match, especially the Friday the 13th they were trying to parody, where Triple H broke into Randy Orton's house. That wasn't even his real house. It was just on a movie set somewhere in L.A. And his fake wife, I think, was there. That wasn't even his real wife. God, was she a bad actress. She didn't show any emotion the whole time. Excuse me, just getting over a cold. Triple H broke in with a sledgehammer, predictably. And the problem with that angle is there were too many random people. Minus the cameramen. There were producers just lying around, and who the hell were these people, you wonder? And I think that took away from the seriousness of the angle of Triple H's home invasion of Randy Orton. It wasn't like the Austin Pillman gun angle, November 96, where the shit was real, and it was legit, and they didn't have all this fancy stuff going around, if you catch my drift here. I just felt it looked more staged than it needed to be. The whole Friday the 13th thing with Triple H and Randy Orton, that's just leading up into WrestleMania. And the match itself could have been so much better. It just felt like I was watching it in slow motion. I think around this time, because they were going PG, the real PG thing started July of 2008, and they did more rest holds. Orton started to use more rest holds versus actual maneuvers, and people weren't taking as many bumps because of neck injuries, so the style was toned down a whole lot. So it was what we like to call a safer style of wrestling. Go back and watch matches from the early 2000s and compare that to matches you watched in the late 2000s. You'll notice a difference if you watch enough of them. So I would have had this match get even more physical than it was meant to be, because they could have used more weapons in it too, more action at the announce table or whatever. There were so many elements they could have used that they just didn't, and that's what killed the crowd. And I would have had Orton come out on top. What does Triple H have to gain at this point? This is his 6th WrestleMania main event. He's going on last. At that point in time, he probably won at least 9 or 10 world titles. That's both the World Heavyweight Championship and WWE Championship. This year's for the WWE Championship, so he didn't need the victory, Triple H, that is, this night. Orton needed it, because 2009 was the year of Randy Orton. And he finally got a chance to shine with the potential he was always burdened with. There were always roadblocks for Randy Orton. I think, this was his chance to shine, and WrestleMania would have been the perfect time to do it. So why they had him lose, I have no idea. But anyways, yeah, I would have done that, and there could have been so much more to make this match more exciting than just a simple wrestling match. And don't use as many rest holds. I know that's what they were going for at this time, but Orton can do more than that, and he's capable of so much more than just a simple headlock or a DDT or whatever. This next match I wouldn't change. Oh no, I'm sorry, I haven't gotten there yet. This next match actually I would change. So you notice there's two people that were in the World Heavyweight title match when WrestleMania 25 actually happened, but I would take them out because we already did the Edge match. John Cena versus The Big Show in a steel cage match. And they've had so many matches going all the way back to WrestleMania 20, which I was there for. And all the way up to, I want to say, like, No Way Out of 2012. They ended up having a steel cage match there, but No Way Out came back for 1 year. And it wasn't much to speak of that. It was in, like, June of 2012. So Big Show, he's hard to take seriously because of how he switches allegiances so often. He's face 1 minute, he's heel the next. Face again, heel again, face again, heel again. You see where I'm going with this. So Big Show being a heel is perfect. I think people take him seriously there. When he's a comedic goofball babyface, I personally lose interest in a lot of his matches. If he's a heroic babyface, it's one thing, but when he's doing the comedy stuff, that just kills it for me because he's so much better than that. And part of me thinks that's sort of, there's people backstage that don't like him too much, so they do this to him as punishment, especially, in 2000 when he was really out of shape and he was developing an arrogant attitude backstage. I talked about that a little bit in WrestleMania 2000 video, so I don't want to delve into that too much now. So it had a steel cage match, and this should have been the last time Big Show and John Cena ever locked horns face to face. They should have never had another match or a feud after this. Maybe the occasional Raw or SmackDown match, but that's it. No pay-per-view. And I had Cena come out on top. Show really didn't need a victory here, but I guess both men really didn't need a victory per se, but it would have made sense having Cena win, and then, it's a silly little feud you could have just closed out, and that's pretty much it. There's not much I can say about John Cena versus The Big Show hasn't already been said before, so we're going to close the book on that one. Close the door. Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels, I would have kept the same. As I'm looking at my list here, I jumped ahead a little bit, so this is the match I would have kept the same. 5-star match, the energy, the emotion, the drama, the spectacle, the crowd reactions, everything, that should have gone on last, but I wouldn't have put it on last here, but I would have given it appropriate placement. You could have done like a semi-main event thing, kind of like they did WrestleMania 7 with the career-threatening match with Warrior and Savage, and then they went to this long-ass intermission, and then had all the rest of the matches. So close out first half of the show, and then that's kind of the placement I would have given it. So I haven't actually arranged how I wanted to do it, but that's okay. It's not the point here. This next match would have been relatively the same, only save for a few participants. The annual Money in the Bank ladder match. This is before Money in the Bank became its own pay-per-view. It wouldn't be till July of 2010 till we had the very first Money in the Bank pay-per-view, now PLE, Premium Live Event. CM Punk versus Kofi Kingston versus John Morrison versus The Miz versus Umaga versus Finlay versus Shelton Benjamin versus MVP. I'm actually okay with CM Punk winning. I'm not just saying that because he's only my second favorite professional wrestler of all time, only behind Stone Cold Steve Austin, who got inducted to the Hall of Fame that year, mind you. CM Punk actually would have had the most to gain from winning this match. He won Money in the Bank the previous year, WrestleMania 24, and cashed it in. A lot of his title victories as a babyface in the summer of '08 were won under the flukiest of circumstances, with JBL 1 month and Batista another. And that was about it. And then the way he was taken out by Jericho, it worked for Jericho, but didn't work out for Punk. So yeah, Punk had a better 2009 than he did 2008. Wouldn't be until 2011 until things got much better for him. We're not going to get into that right now. So CM Punk, I would have had him go over in this match. I love that Kofi Kingston had his WrestleMania debut here in an appropriately fitting match like Money in the Bank. He's perfect for ladder matches. Kofi shines there. And then, of course, he had Kofi Mania, WrestleMania 35. John Morrison and The Miz were the World Tag Team Champions on Raw at the time. Now, it was at this time that Raw and ECW had a working agreement, so to speak. The previous year was SmackDown and ECW. I think ECW's ratings were not doing so well on Sci-Fi. Excuse me. So what they ended up doing was bringing over some talent from either show. At first it was SmackDown, and then I think in the summer of 2008 they changed it over to Raw, and it had to do with their travel schedule. SmackDown ECW guys always traveled together. Raw and ECW guys did, I think, later, but not as much as SmackDown ECW did. So it was a talent exchange just to get more viewership and ratings. That was the goal. And then eventually that kind of fizzled out, and ECW was its own entity. I mean, they always were their own entities, but ECW needed that extra oomph to it because it was so lackluster after the whole, after Paul Heyman was let go and the original feel of ECW was dead and gone. So, anyways, back to the match here. So anyways, John Morrison and The Miz were appearing on Raw regularly, and they were the World Tag Team Champions. But as they're in this match, they will not be defending their belt. They were on the pre-show earlier. In real time, they were on the pre-show and had the unified tag title match with the SmackDown's WWE Tag Team Champions, Carlito and Primo, who I'll get to in a little bit here. Then Miz and Morrison lost. They broke up. And a guy reviewing WrestleMania 25 once wrote, Kid Rock gets 10 minutes and Miz and Morrison don't? Kid Rock had a long-ass performance. And I love Kid Rock, don't get me wrong. I think he's a great performer, great musician, great music, whatever. But the 10-minute performance didn't need to take up part of Mania. So, John Morrison, The Miz. John Morrison's perfect for this match. Could see a lot of Starship Pain off a ladder. Not sure I've ever actually seen that. Umaga, he's kind of a funny topic here because he had just come back from injury in the summer of 2008. I have no idea why he was left off WrestleMania. I know he had a lot of substance abuse issues, and sadly, he passed away December the 4th of 2009, and then he was released like 6 months before that. So, as ultimately, 2009 didn't do great for Eddie Fatu, Umaga. He's the brother of Rikishi, uncle to the Usos and Solo Sikoa. So he'd have been great as a big man in this match. I could actually move around. They actually had Mark Henry in this match, but Mark Henry's not great in ladder matches, save for, throwing a guy through a ladder or pushing two ladders apart, showing his feats of strength. Umaga could have done some spots that would have looked slick for a big guy in a ladder match. Finlay is okay in this match. A little Celtic cross action. Hornswoggle he could have used to his advantage. Shelton Benjamin is great. He's like Kofi in this match. MVP was good. He was the United States champion, so there will not be a U.S. title match on this card, and there wasn't one. So, anyways, that's it for Money in the Bank. Next match would have been the Intercontinental Championship in a triple threat match. At this point in time, it had been, I think, 7 or 8 years since the IC title was defended at WrestleMania. The champion was always involved in another match in years prior to this. JBL was the champion walking into it. He had only defeated CM Punk 3 weeks prior. And I'm glad they got the belt off of Punk. As much as I don't like to see Punk lose, he needed to move forward past the IC title. That wasn't a very memorable reign, to be honest. JBL will defend the belt against Kane and Rey Mysterio. And these were kind of upper mid-card guys floating around on Raw. Kind of needed something to do. I wouldn't have made this the retirement angle for JBL like it ended up being in real time when Rey won the IC title in 21 seconds and JBL said, I quit! So no, I wouldn't have had him quit in Houston, Texas. Maybe the next night on Raw, they could have done the whole 21-second bit, but I really don't like these, matches that take only seconds happening at WrestleMania. The performers deserve so much better than that. So I would have had Rey Mysterio go over just like he did in real time. He actually did well as Intercontinental Champion. He needed a mid-card belt coming off the failed world title run. It just was a world title run in 2006 that you couldn't take seriously for one reason or another. Kane, kind of floating around at this time. Then JBL would have slowly made his way into retirement. Maybe at that point in time they should have used him as a color commentator there because Taz was on his way out around this time, so he actually would have worked perfectly. Matt Stryker was budding on ECW. Pardon me. All right, this next match I would have changed. This was the Legends match, and I say it because we're going to talk about a legend who that year became a Hall of Famer. Chris Jericho versus Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Now, this was a 3-on-2 handicap elimination match where Steamboat was joined by Superfly, Jimmy Snuka, and Rowdy Roddy Piper. I would not put Piper and Snuka in this match. All these guys were past their prime. But Steamboat looked great for 56 years old at the time. He could still go. Steamboat was Jericho's idol. Jericho's talked about this in numerous interviews and numerous documentaries. He worshipped the ground Steamboat walked on. He's the reason Steamboat's the reason Jericho got into wrestling. So they should have had an epic match at Mania. Jericho obviously should have won. Really poor Wrestlemania record at that time. I don't remember the numbers then. Wins and losses. Steamboat didn't need the victory. It's sort of a passing of the torch moment, but I would have had Jericho do what he did at WrestleMania 19, that epic match with Shawn Michaels, where he kicked him below the belt after the match, and they could have still had that match at Backlash, but it would have been so much better Jericho Steamboat singles match at WrestleMania. This next match was not ever on the card, but I'm putting this here as this is my vision. The WWE Tag Team Championship from SmackDown. Carlito and Primo were the champions going into this match, and they had that pre-show match with Miz and Morrison, unifying both tag titles. I wouldn't unify the tag belts. They should have stayed separate. Another story for another day, though. So Carlito and Primo would have them defend against the Brian Kendrick and Ezekiel Jackson. I love that pairing for as short as it was. The newly christened Hart Dynasty. You would have had David Hart Smith. He might have been going by D.H. Smith at the time, and the newly debuting Tyson Kidd. Originally Teddy Hart, I think, was supposed to be a part of this, but he was kind of an asshole backstage. He's always getting into trouble, that Teddy Hart, so never made it to WWE main roster. They would have taken on Jesse and Festus, a great comedic duo from the backwoods. Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder, no longer associated with Edge. And then I would have had a surprise here, and this surprise would have been the winners, The Legacy, which are Ted DiBiase and Cody Rhodes. Now this would have been great because you had Orton winning the WWE Championship earlier in the evening, DiBiase and Rhodes winning the Tag Team Championship later in the night, being last-minute entrance into this Turmoil match. And you already saw my video on Tag Team Turmoil, so enough said here. ECW Championship. This would have been the last year for it because February 2010, ECW was done. Jack Swagger would be defending against the one and only ECW original at the time, Tommy Dreamer. Dreamer really should have had his moment here instead of Extreme Rules of 2009. Jack Swagger was an up-and-coming star discovered by Jim Ross and Gerald Briscoe. He's from Oklahoma, so of course Jim Ross will like anybody from Oklahoma. And Tommy Dreamer, when he won the ECW title in April of 2000, I believe. I don't remember what the show was. I wasn't really watching a whole lot of ECW back then. But he did make this memorable promo where he said, "I never wanted to main event Starrcade. I never wanted to main event WrestleMania. But I'm so glad I sure as hell got to win the ECW championship here tonight." Now, I'm not saying this verbatim, so don't take this at face value, but he said things along those lines, so go back and watch it if you'd like. So this would have been a good, legit victory for Tommy Dreamer, and then he could have retired after this, and that would have been great. And then the last match on the actual card, I would have had a 10-woman tag team match. Instead of the Miss WrestleMania Diva Battle Royal, I don't even like calling them divas anymore. I don't think it's respectful to the women who work so hard to be on par with the men here in wrestling. I'm glad things took a step in the right direction as they have for women's wrestling. So in this match, the babyface women's team of Melina, Kelly, Mickie James, Maria, and Tori Wilson, because he had a few surprises in the Battle Royal that year, Tori Wilson being one of them. She'd been gone for a time. They would have won this match. They'd be the winners, going over Maurice, who was the Divas champion at the time, Michelle McCool, Natalia, Beth Phoenix, and the returning Sunny. I would have put Sunny on the heel team here just because she's better as a heel. Melina was actually the women's champion, I forgot to say, on Raw, and Maurice was the Divas champion on SmackDown. The Divas title only been around a year, and then they finally canned it in 2016. They finally started calling it the Women's Championship, as it should have always been. So yeah, this would have been a nice 10-woman tag team match, And yeah, the baby Melina's team would have gone over Maurice's team as they were the respective champions then, but it would have been great solely for the pops of Sunny and Tori Wilson. And yeah, there's really not much more of that I could say. I didn't like the whole Santina Morella thing. That was crap. Now, it wouldn't be complete without a pre-show battle royal, because you got some folks that, deserve a WrestleMania payday, even if it's not as big as what the other guys and gals are getting. I would have had Mark Henry win the pre-show battle royal, take him out of Money in the Bank and put him here. He would have won against Great Khali, Dolph Ziggler, Charlie Haas, Evan Bourne, Hurricane Helms, Goldust, Jamie Noble, Jimmy Wang Yang, Kung Funaki, Ricky Ortiz, JTG, Shad Gaspard, Mike Knox, Paul Burchill, R-Truth, Vladimir Kozlov, William Regal, DJ Gabriel, and Santino Marella. So Mark Henry would have won, and he would have been the perfect person to win this bout. So that takes care of WrestleMania 25 as I rewrite it, Harry Fling. So I'd love to hear your comments. I'd love to hear any differing views, opinions on this matter here. I always appreciate comments on these things, and see if we can get a little discussion going. So I hope everybody tunes in this Saturday, 7 p.m., and this Sunday also at 7 p.m. for WrestleMania 41 emanating from Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, Nevada. That's all I have for now, and I hope everybody enjoys WrestleMania this weekend. This has been another great edition of Harry Fling Wrestling. My name is Harry Fling, and until next time, everybody, bye-bye.